The jump light finally changed from red to green. Without hesitation, and with little time to consider what awaited them on the ground, Compton and the other paratroopers hurled themselves into the darkness below. Looking back on the moment, he recalled that his only hope was that the aircraft was actually flying over the designated drop zone. The pilot of the C-47 was concentrating entirely on avoiding anti-aircraft fire and had not reduced speed to the normal jump velocity. As a result, the blast from the propellers struck the men with tremendous force. The shock was far greater than Compton had anticipated. The impact ripped the plastic chin cup from his helmet and tore away the leg bag that contained his carbine and other essential equipment. As he descended through the night sky, he could hear the distant sounds of gunfire rising from the ground, though none of it appeared to be aimed at him. He drifted down into a small enclosed field, bordered by hedgerows and an orchard. His landing was clean and controlled. To his surprise, the area was unnervingly silent. Apart from the occasional sound of cattle lowing somewhere in the distance, there was little indication that a massive invasion was underway. Standing alone in the darkness, he realized that nearly all of his equipment was gone. Aside from a trench knife, a canteen, and a couple of grenades, he had almost nothing with him. The first combat jump undertaken by the airborne divisions proved to be both a success and a disaster. Although many troops had reached France, thousands were scattered across the countryside, separated from their units and unsure of their locations. As Compton attempted to orient himself, he could hear fighting somewhere far off. In theory, he should have encountered men from his own platoon almost immediately. Instead, he wasn't even finding soldiers from his own division. Then, unexpectedly, another paratrooper landed in the same field only about 20 yards away. The newcomer belonged to the 82nd Airborne Division. Despite coming from different units, the two men decided to move together toward Compton's objective, Utah Beach. As they made their way through the Norman countryside, additional stragglers joined them. Some came from entirely different outfits, but all were searching for their objectives. At one point they encountered a lieutenant from Dog Company who had broken his leg during the landing. Since Compton had lost his own weapon, he asked the injured officer if he could have his Thompson submachine gun. The lieutenant willingly handed it over. Compton later reflected that the officer was probably relieved simply to be alive. Remaining behind in enemy territory with a broken leg placed him in grave danger. If German soldiers found him before American forces did, his chances of survival would be slim. The growing group continued forward, gathering more paratroopers as they advanced. Along the way, several German soldiers surrendered. Compton had no interest in harming men who had already laid down their weapons. His focus remained on completing the mission rather than taking unnecessary lives. As dawn approached, the sounds of intense fighting from Utah Beach became increasingly audible. At one point, a naval shell screamed overhead and landed only about 50 feet away. Compton remembered the terrifying moment vividly. The shell struck the earth with tremendous force, shaking the ground beneath them before burying itself in the soil. Miraculously, it failed to explode. Had the shell detonated, everyone nearby would almost certainly have been killed. As they drew closer to their objective, German artillery fire grew louder and more frequent. It was then that Compton finally encountered familiar faces. He spotted Lieutenant Winters along with Sergeants Malarkey, Garnier, and Toy. A handful of enlisted men from various companies were also present. Together they formed a force of roughly a dozen soldiers. Consulting a map, Winters informed Compton that they were near an estate known as Brecourt Manor, situated a few miles west of Utah Beach. Intelligence indicated that a battery of German 105mm artillery guns had been dug in there and was firing on troops from the 4th Infantry Division landing at Utah Beach. Winters quickly organized an assault. He instructed Compton to lead a small element that would provide covering fire while the main attack unfolded. Compton jumped into one of the enemy trenches and immediately aimed his borrowed Thompson at several startled German soldiers. He squeezed the trigger. Nothing happened. The weapon failed to fire. The firing pin was broken. As the Germans began raising their own weapons, Sergeant Bill Garnier, who had followed close behind, opened fire and shot one of the enemy soldiers. The second German turned and attempted to flee. Acting almost instinctively, Compton hurled a grenade after him with the precision of a baseball player. The grenade exploded directly above the man's head, killing him instantly. That moment marked Compton's first confirmed kill in combat. Years later, he found it difficult to explain what it felt like to take another person's life. He knew nothing about the man he had killed, whether he had a family, what his life had been before the war, or what dreams he might have had. In battle, there was no time to consider such things. The reality was simple and brutal. Either you killed the enemy first, or you risked being killed yourself. Compton doubted that his decision to throw the grenade had even been a conscious one. Training, duty, and survival instincts had taken over. The men knew what was expected of them, and they carried out their orders as best they could under impossible circumstances. The fight for Brecourt Manor lasted several hours. Machine gun fire rattled across the battlefield as Winter's force systematically attacked and destroyed the 4 artillery pieces one after another. Compton later admitted that many details of the engagement blurred together in his memory. What he did remember was that eventually all 4 German guns were eliminated, and the men withdrew to their original position once the objective had been secured. Historians have since concluded that the destruction of the battery helped reduce casualties among troops landing at Utah Beach. Compton took satisfaction in that fact. If their actions had saved American lives, then they had accomplished exactly what they had been sent there to do. For his role in the assault, Compton received the Silver Star. The days that followed D-Day passed in a haze of exhaustion and continuous combat. He survived numerous close calls, including nearby grenade and mortar explosions that somehow left him completely unharmed. The constant stress and fatigue dulled many of his memories from that period. One incident, however, never left him. While patrolling alongside a private near a hedgerow, Compton spotted 2 figures moving along another hedgerow approximately 50 yards away. Both men appeared to be wearing camouflage ponchos commonly associated with German SS troops, and one carried what looked like a Mauser rifle. Believing they had encountered enemy soldiers, Compton and the private opened fire, killing both men. When they later approached the bodies, they made a horrifying discovery. The dead soldiers were Americans. To this day, Compton never learned why they had been carrying a German rifle or wearing captured German ponchos. The tragedy weighed heavily on him for the rest of his life. Of all the painful memories he carried from the war, that incident remained among the most difficult to reconcile. He often spoke about the burden of survival and the guilt that accompanied it. Even years later, he struggled to understand why he had survived when so many others had not. As the campaign in Normandy continued, one of the most strategically important objectives was the town of Carentan. Situated between Utah and Omaha beaches, it controlled a critical network of roads connecting Allied forces across the region. Both sides recognized its importance. The Germans were determined to hold it, while the Americans were equally determined to capture it. Defending part of the town's outskirts was the elite German 6th Parachute Regiment. The 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment received orders to seize and hold Carentan. Before the assault, Allied artillery pounded the area relentlessly, effectively leveling much of the town over a 2-day period. By this stage, Lieutenant Winters had assumed command of Easy Company. The entire 2nd Battalion was ordered to make a nighttime approach toward Carentan. After advancing, however, they were unexpectedly ordered to turn around and return to their starting positions. Once back in their foxholes, they came under heavy enemy artillery bombardment. Only after the shelling ceased were they ordered once more to move toward the city. When Compton entered Carentan, he found a landscape of devastation. The town resembled a ghost city. Buildings had been shattered into rubble, and dead German soldiers lay scattered throughout the streets. As the battalion moved through the main thoroughfare and out the opposite side, scenes of destruction surrounded them everywhere. Compton estimated that they passed a dead body every few yards. Many had been severely mutilated by the artillery bombardment. Despite moving through what had once been a populated community, he saw virtually no civilians. He assumed that any remaining townspeople had taken refuge in cellars and basements to escape the fighting. After leaving the ruined town and advancing west toward their next objective, the paratroopers were caught off guard by a powerful German counterattack. The fierce engagement that followed became known as the Battle of Bloody Gulch. Eventually, Easy Company withdrew back into Carentan, where they remained while awaiting further orders. After spending roughly a month fighting in France, the airborne divisions were recalled to England to prepare for another large-scale airborne operation. That planned drop was ultimately cancelled after General Patton's Third Army advanced so rapidly that it overran the intended drop zone. While many Allied units continued their advance across France during Operation Cobra and the subsequent drive toward Paris, the men of the 506th spent their time in England training and preparing for whatever operation might come next. If you have a thought regarding Buck Compton's experiences in Normandy, drop it in a comment below. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and subscribe.